All right, what's going on, guys? So this is gonna be my first ever price action video. I'm gonna kind of be showing you how I trade, how I spot my entries, and like basically the whole strategy. Just a disclaimer. This is, in my opinion, a lot simpler than ITC concepts. I don't use ICT concepts for the most part. All I really do is just trade above pivot highs and below pivot lows, right? So all of my entries are above pivot highs, and all my entries are below pivot lows. It's very, very simple. So I found that ever since I've just been waiting for these types of setups, I've been just absolutely killing it compared to before. So it's always higher time frame, pivot highs and pivot lows. I'm gonna start on the 4 hour, and I'm gonna kind of wake my way down. So basically, a pivot high is just where price pivots, right? So where it makes a new high and then it changes directions to a low, this would be a pivot level. This also would be a pivot level because it's the highest point, it dropped. Highest point, it dropped. And these are pivot highs. Obviously, pivot lows are just the opposite, right? So pivot low is just when it's dropping and then changes direction. So all I'm doing is trading above these levels and below these levels. This is a very clear pivot low, right? It's just wicks on the 4 hour, but if we go to the 1 hour and the 15 minute, it's gonna look a little bit more detailed. So you can see that these are clear levels, clear pivot lows that price keeps changing directions off of. So what am I doing? I'm waiting for the break of 25,500, which is the pivot low, and I'm going to take it down to the next pivot low. That's exactly how I trade. So the entry was really around, I'm going to fast forward just a little bit. I think I'm going to do 5 minutes, so it's a little quicker. Okay, so as you can see, the entry was right, hold up, right here. Okay, so on this wake up, a little bit of a retracement. Here's the entry. This is my indication that we're going to flush down. Now, um, unfortunately, this actually happened. If you look here on the 1 minute time frame, this happened before market open at around 9:18. I was pretty upset about that. I don't like trading pre-market, so I decided not to get into that trade. And also, if you guys are trading, options, you wouldn't be able to get into that trade. But basically, that was the entry. I missed it. So we can keep going to kind of wait until market opens. So I'm going to go to the 5 minute chart so it's easier to see when market opens. So market opens, we're still kind of there. I feel like, at this point, it's kind of in a way chasing the trade. So I didn't get in right off the bat at market open. I wanted to wait for a pullback into a lower time frame key level. I always wait for key levels, but lower time frame key levels, even though they're not as, strong as the higher time frame, they're still good. So at this point in time, I'm kind of just weighing on my options, waiting to see what happens, hoping to get a pullback into, this area here. Because again, this box that I have drawn out is an old pivot level. As you can see right here, we made a lower time frame wick here. Let me go here. Okay, so we have lower time frame pivot levels here. So like on the hourly chart, you can see we pivoted. We made a higher high off of this level. Had a lot of buyers. So basically, I'm waiting for the break of this once again, and basically waiting for a retest of this level before I get into the trade. As I upload more recaps, all of this is gonna make a lot more sense. But it's very simple. It's literally just trading below highs or trading below lows and trading above highs. So now at this point, I'm waiting for a retest of that pivot level. We just keep flushing down. I feel like I missed it. And then we finally get a little bit of a bounce here. So this is where I get my entry. Um, Around here, I'm expecting a break to low of day with a little bit of continuation. I plan on just getting out at low of day though. That was really my target. So we're going in, we get another bounce. Now we make another, slightly higher high. I'm a little nervous about that at this point, and then we get this breakdown. I'm confident. I think I'm good. I think we're going to lows. Now this is where things get scary, right? Unfortunately, instead of going down and hitting those targeted lows, the pivot low level here, we actually end up just skyrocketing, right? This was unfortunate. I thought I was going to get stopped out, but luckily, um, I actually still ended up being able to capitalize on the fact that my stop loss was above what? A pivot high. Now, this is not a pivot high on the higher time frame, right? That's another thing that people are going to be getting confused. However, it is a pivot high on the lower time frame, right? Pivot high on the lower time frame. The pivot highs are normally, the highest point on a longer dated chart, but if your stop loss is going to be, at a certain level and you don't want it to be too wide, obviously I can't have my stop all the way up here. It's going to be too much. My stop loss is above a pivot high. So the pivot high is just on the lower time frame. And also keep in mind this level has a lot of buyers. And once we get below a level with a lot of buyers, that means a lot of sellers are now going to be there. So it's just another concept that you have to remember. Once we break below a level with a lot of buyers, that same level is going to have a lot of sellers as long as we are directly below that level. So keeping that in mind, I put my stop loss above that level. That was an amazing stop loss. Ended up preventing me from getting stopped out. And we were able to capitalize. Now, something else to look out for that a lot of people don't pay attention to when they're trading. I'm going to go on the 1 minute time frame so this is easier for you to see. This is a pivot low. As you can see, we bounced off of that level to make this new high. So I'm over here thinking in my head, there's a lot of buyers at this 25 340 level, like lots of buyers. The fact that we were able to push up that high off of that level goes to show me that there's a lot of buyers. Price is always attracted. Sellers are always attracted to where buyers are at. Buyers are always attracted to where sellers are at. So buyers are here. I know we're gonna hit this level. However, I'm keeping a very close eye at this level to make sure that buyers do not step in aggressively because we could potentially make a double bottom here and go back up to highs. So that's what I'm looking for when I see this drop. Now, we were able to get a very strong closure below that level. And even though we were below the level, I was still, kind of on edge about it. So I'm just watching price and I see two not so bullish green candles here. So, I'm not too worried about it. We're still below the pivot low. So I'm calm at this point. However, again, I'm still keeping my eyes open for a strong displacement candle. Strong displacement just means, a bigger candle than the other candles relative to it. Like this, for example, this red candle right here, this is actually a displacement candle to the downside. So the fact that we made a displacement candle to the downside boosted my confidence and my conviction in this trade. We get another strong displacement candle to the downside, and I pretty much take profits here, I believe after this candle. No, I take profits here at the bottom. I didn't let it go all the way down to the bottom. I normally take profits right before. So the trade did end up working out. We did end up getting more continuation as well. I did not capture any of this because I was already out of the trade at the bottom here. Um, Basically, what I want you guys to get out of the videos that I'm making is just how to actually catch trades, right? So, pretty much every trade I take, I'm gonna make a trade recap. I'm gonna go over like how I actually caught the trade, what my thesis was before I got into the trade, and in the future I might even do, like pre-market charting, just basically showing you what my thesis is going into the next day. But just to kind of recap this recap, basically my thesis coming into today was bearish. I knew that once we broke these lows here, we were going to flush down to the next pivot low. So basically, the targets after that pivot low that I took profits at, let's say I never caught that trade, the next trade would be taking, um, this is obviously a pivot low, right? We just broke this pivot low. So I would actually, I wouldn't be opposed to taking a trade down to, well, this is a key level here. This is Friday's close, so that's the reason why we're bouncing off of that. We're bouncing off of Friday's close at 4 p.m. But if we're able to break below that, I would put my stop loss above this level. Let me show you just so you can see a visual. I'll put my stop above this pivot low, and then I'll just put it above this pivot low here. This is where strong buyers are sitting. Strong buyers are sitting here. Anything above this level is most likely going to be bullish. I would be willing to take this. Now, this is a longer time frame trade. Just an example, kind of showing you what I believe where price is going to go. I believe we're going to fill this whole gap over the next 2 to 3 trading days. So that's kind of the thesis. You have to be able to scale in these type of trades though, which is why, you have to be able to scale out. So you have to be able to have a big enough position size to take profits on the way down. That's what I mean when I say scale. But very simple strategy. Overall, this is again, um, this is so the level that I would really be targeting first would be this pivot low, right? Because these were pre-market levels. These don't hold too much weight. However, they're still important to take profits at that way you don't get cooked on the way back up. And then the next level would be this pivot low, another take profit level, and then after that you could just go for the flush run home because there's no other pivot levels here. You know, so it's just above pivot lows and um below pivot lows and above pivot highs. That's really just as simple as it gets. If you guys have any questions or if you want me to review one of your trades for completely free, I'm down to do it. I have a Calendly booking link down below. It's completely free. I'm going to be doing these for free for some time for sure. So if you guys want like insight or like my my take on a certain trade that you've taken or that you want to take, definitely just book with me and then I'll be more than happy to run through that with you. Other than that, it's pretty much all I got for this video today, guys. Peace out.